video and the audio, and will be recorded and made available within 48 hours. Usually we have it out within 1 day. So we just gotta get that thing rendered and posted and put out there for everybody. So we do want to make this interactive, but we're not making the audio available just to keep it from being disruptive. Everybody's been in those meetings when somebody has a dog barking or something in the background, so we're going to keep it you guys muted, but we are going to provide you questions in the question panel, and we're going to do a few polls. So the question panel, as you see, I just highlighted here. If you have a question, it's in the question panel. Please do submit questions and comments in the question panel. Also, to let you know, we have had people in the past that say that their control panel blocks part of their screen. You can minimize the control panel by pushing this little orange button right here, and it'll minimize it, and just these pieces will still remain, and you can maximize it. Again, the button will change direction. You can maximize it by pushing the other way. All right, let's get started. So there's our copyright, and it'll be in there for everybody to read if you want to go to sleep. And about today's presenters. So I am doing the talking right now. I'm Mike Taylor. I'm president of Innovative E, and I have with me Gino DeGregorio. Want to say hi, Gino?
Hey, thanks, Mike. Yes, my name is Gino DeGregorio, president and CEO of Bravo Consulting Group here. And I look forward to kind of walking you guys through digital transformation and the three items there.
All right, awesome, Gino. Glad you could be here with us again today. All right. So really, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Innovative E, and then we're going to get a little bit about Bravo, just so everybody knows who's talking, what we're all about. So our mission there is really to provide continuously amazing experiences that improve the lives of everyone. And we work with government and big enterprise environments all over the United States. And our vision, to further put a finer point on it, is really to empower individuals and groups with work management freedom while providing unparalleled visibility, agility, and control at the enterprise level. So what that really means is, and it kind of follows the Microsoft moniker of allow people to work the way they want, but give the ability for management and at the enterprise level the control and capability to manage things the way they need. So we have multiple gold competencies. The one that we're most involved with most of the time is our project portfolio management, but we do things in content collaboration, application development, data center, data analytics. We're also the 2019 PPM Project Portfolio Management, one of the finalists for the Partner of the Year award. So I'll pass it over to Gino to tell everybody a little bit more about Bravo Consulting.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So Bravo Consulting Group has been in business for almost 12 years now. Similar to Mike, we've been doing a lot of Microsoft solutions for our customers, mainly in the federal government for the first 8 to 10 years. And here the last 4 years, we've really been increasing our support to the commercial, state, and local as well. Mainly our services focus in 3 areas, which is content, cloud, and analytics. You know, from a content perspective, that's your Office 365 and helping our customers get to to Office 365 and Azure. And then from a cloud perspective, anything to do with migrating folks to the cloud, as well as securing it and supporting it, both from Microsoft Azure, and we've done some AWS as well. And then from an analytics, it's essentially focused on the data side, data visualization, and providing essentially the right information at the right time to make better decisions. And from a solutions perspective, we have security compliance, and which we'll highlight a lot on this in the digital transformation. And as you can see at the bottom, you know, we've supported large organization and many users throughout our lifespan. So
awesome. Thanks, Gino. Yeah, and for those who are wondering, Innovative E and Bravo work closely together in many engagements, and if you probably notice there's a little overlap between what we do. If you had a Venn diagram, there's definitely some areas that overlap, but there's a lot of areas where we specialize. So we found it's been a really good working relationship. So that's what that's kind of about. So I'm going to start now with launching the first poll. I'd like to talk a little bit and get some input on what is digital transformation. So there's just 3 questions there, so it shouldn't take very long. So just click the radio button there next to the one that you guys think best fits the description of what is digital transformation. So, you know, repurposing apps for the cloud, new innovation, or just another buzzword. And looking at some results come back in, and nobody's pushing just another buzzword, huh?
That's nice.
I thought maybe I'd catch somebody with that one. So it looks
I was
like
going to select it, but it wouldn't let me.
now you're a presenter, you can't select it. So
Yeah.
there you go. All right, so I give everybody just about another 6 or 8 seconds to see if there's any more responses that'll come in on the poll that's on the screen now. And it's almost kind of a trick question. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll here. And the screen should be back. Do you see the screen again, Gino?
Yes.
Make sure it's back. All right, perfect. So here's the, this is actually a definition that was found on, I believe it was Wikipedia, but it is the novel use of digital technology to solve traditional problems. The real key differentiation here, though, is that it's solving new types of innovation creatively rather than enhancing the traditional methods. So really, that was the second answer. Some of you guys, most people answered that way, I think about 80%. Some actually clicked on moving apps to the cloud, which is why it's a little bit of a trick question, because some of the underpinning of digital transformation, one of the core pieces, it doesn't have to be cloud, but that is actually one of the things that's enabling it. The vast majority of digital transformation experiences that people and journey people are going through are around getting the apps to the cloud and then being able to do things, then being able to build this innovation on top of it. Anything you want to add to that, Gino, before we get into areas of focus?
No, I think you highlighted some of the areas that definitely we're going to be touching on. So we'll go to the next slide.
Great. So really, what we're going to talk about today, there's a lot of areas of digital transformation, and it's a vast area of capabilities that are enabled for organizations, enterprise, governments, public, private enterprises alike, large and small. But the areas we're going to focus on today are really around the areas of collaboration. So this is, the concept of people being able to work better together. And of course, with the advent of the internet and all the apps that have been built out there and all the platforms, collaboration has increased over the years. There's a lot of great things, specifically around the Microsoft platform and apps like SharePoint that have been built, or platform capabilities like SharePoint. But what we've found is there's still a lot of siloed collaboration going on. And I think one of the things that we'll talk more about is that it's building beyond those siloed and many times ad hoc ways of doing collaboration into more structured collaboration, but also giving a lot of flexibility to it. So things like Teams and some of these others will be part of it, but also the applications themselves and how you have structured apps, whether you decide to build those apps or buy those apps, which is a whole different discussion that we could go into as well. So the next piece is kind of the innovation work and project management. So this is, it's closely tied to collaboration, and Gino will talk about some of the pieces. Some of these are, again, like Venn diagrams. They work very closely together. But this is kind of one of the sweet spots for Innovative E. We've been doing this for about, most of the time we've been in existence from 19 years, but in the last 10 or 12 years, we've really focused on the innovation work and project management components. So this is really about getting work done. The interesting thing here is that the traditional way of doing project management, the one to the furthest right there, with the more complexity there, is been to use project management tools like oftentimes Microsoft Project. A lot of people use tools like Excel and PowerPoint and things like that to do project management. There's a vast array of web-based and cloud-based platforms, but they're point solutions for project management. The interesting thing is we kind of think of this as more of a continuum. So it's not one or the other. It's kind of like there's a variety of tools that can be used and can be work together to produce a better platform at the enterprise level. So the next piece is the security, compliance, and governance.
Yeah, and then, like as you're saying, Mike, the biggest thing is not just as you're moving from to the digital transformation, it's not just about the collaboration and innovation and looking at all these different apps and the data and now kind of ease of use of a lot of those applications, but also making sure that the security and compliance as well as the governance is implemented, because it's no longer just, how can I minimize my costs, get to the cloud and start using my apps, but you got to secure that, right? It's easily accessible now. You need to make sure that who has the appropriate access, and how do you as well as make sure that you're complying with some of the rules and regulations and some of the laws essentially that the government has out there, depending on which industry or vertical you're providing your services. So it's definitely we'll be diving in a little bit more on that as part of our discussion today, so you can have a good understanding and implementation.
Awesome. And one of the things I think at a high level, Gino, you and I have talked about there is that compliance and security are often thought of as ways that are those those things you have to do as an enterprise, which you do. I mean, there's no doubt, but they're often thought of things that can pull back the ability to get things done. When in reality, in this digital transformation environment we're in now, more and more is going to cloud-based applications that opens up more ability for people to do things more broadly. I think the security and compliance is really a component that actually is an empowering feature as much as it is a feature that, or a capability that is for making sure things are done the right way.
Absolutely, it's not just about kind of tighten, like you said, the tighten and making it a nuance, but it's more of making it integrated as part of your solution as you move to the cloud, because it's a crazy world out there. Want to make sure we're protecting your investments.
And it's kind of a new way of thinking about it, right? Like you said, that you're rating it into your solution rather than trying to protect everything behind a firewall and the VPNs and those kind of things. I mean, those things are important, but there's ways to do this that are much more robust and empowering at the same time.
Right.
Good stuff. So the areas of interest. This is actually a selection of some of the responses we got from folks. There were many more than this, so really appreciate everybody responding. We definitely are going to be touching on several of these topics. If there's some that we don't actually get to, or there's still questions, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. If we still can't get to them at that point, we would invite you to contact us and let us know if you want to have one-on-one discussions or anything afterwards. So there's a lot there, the quick wins, the digital transformation journey, the roadmap. We're going to talk a little bit about those with our 3 steps, but of course there's a lot more we can dive into later. So what are the 3 steps to digital transformation and the 3 steps to success, as we've learned? So these really come from a collection of academic kind of input that we've gotten, and then just being practitioners between our organization, Gino's organizations, others we've seen, having done a lot of implementations and then building applications and building things that are in the digital transformation new way of thinking, more innovatively and creatively. Thank you. Get that word out there in a minute. All right. So really, the first is awareness. So what is it that you're trying to accomplish at a business level? So really, this is thinking about what are the business drivers for trying to do something. And the great thing about these platforms is that it's increasing the ability for people to do things. You've heard maybe about the power apps and kind of the low code, no code kind of solutions. So there's a lot more enablement for people to do things themselves, which is great. And you can go in and look at things like business problems and try to do some prototyping and things, maybe even build solutions yourself. But you also have to look at what are the underlying tools that are available and what's the best usage of those tools. Then you have to kind of understand what are the existing processes and governance frameworks that are in place that you now have to work within. And that could be from a security or compliance, but just as often it's around what are the actual governance processes. So you might have some real lightweight project management for a marketing organization or a corporate communications organization to do events or things like that, but there's still a process that's defined there. So you still kind of have to understand that before you get going. So really awareness of what's available, and you'll get into some of the buy versus build kind of decisions here as well. What's the scale you need to do, and what you need to do from does it make sense to have your organization or individuals build something versus potentially going and getting a tool, because that's the other piece of digital transformation is a lot of tools are becoming available. I think what was the stat we heard, Gino, that Satya Nadella said at the conferences? How many new apps? Yeah, 500 million in the next 5 years. It's crazy. So there's going to be a proliferation of apps.
And one thing to add there, so real quick on the awareness, before you go into alignment, is also like I think you mentioned the new apps and that are constantly coming that are making it easier to kind of build those business processes, but also the legacy apps, right? As you're looking at your whole environment, some of those legacy apps may not be, may not be right essentially to go into the cloud, right? So some of those things you need to make sure that which ones are the ones you want to start looking at those and make sure they're in alignment into what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it means repurposing things. Sometimes it makes sense to kind of start all over, right? And use the platforms and the technologies in a more meaningful way. And then there's action, which is really executing, and that's actually getting things done. Again, we'll get into more detail here. That's about building the plan, making sure there's adoption and evolution for any of these solutions that are available that you make. So getting into more detail around awareness. So how do you actually get awareness? One of the things that is key is and is becoming more and more available these days, and there's actually disciplines that are growing up around ideation and innovation management. So the concept of getting a lot of people involved in what are your business challenges is one of the things that we see really as an emerging kind of discipline area, but it's also it's something that organizations are embracing because it really helps not only get the best ideas for your organization. Sometimes it's internal to the organization, sometimes external, sometimes a combination of both, but it also helps with things like employee retention because people really feel that they're part of the solution and they really have a voice. And now with the electronic platforms, the way they are, ideation is much easier to do. And in fact, we'll actually show the demo we'll do will be on a tool that actually is built specifically for ideation in the digital transformation kind of space. So that kind of segues into the second piece there, which is what are the tools that are available and map the best ones to the possible solutions. So you have to understand, in the 365 space, and we'll go through it in a little more detail here in a minute. There's a wide variety of tools that are available, and obviously there's a wide variety of tools and technologies that are available. What are the best ones to map for your organization or your group for the possible solutions? And then again, we talked about the policies and governance. And Gino, I think you had some additional thoughts there.
Yeah, just a few points right there. It's really, as you mentioned, the tools and the ideas to being aware of all your applications as there, as well as the business processes. But, the policies and governance is what's going to help you drive and make sure that you are in alignment to meeting those regulations, as well as making sure that from a usage perspective, your users are able to maximize and you get the return on your investment on those applications that you're moving towards. So
awesome. Yep. Thank you, Gino. And getting into kind of a deeper dive into just in the Microsoft space, what are the tools that are available to you? So this is, we borrowed this from one of the SharePoint, Jump to 365, one of the SharePoint MVPs put this together, or Office 365 MVPs, and it shows that they call it the periodic table for, this is just in the Microsoft space, right? And a lot of this comes with, if you have Office 365, and some of these are actually add-on products to it. So the ones that we'll just kind of be touching on a little bit today are things like SharePoint Online, Power Apps, Flow, Power BI, Planner, Project Online. Those are some of the work management pieces. One of the other things we'll also touch on is kind of the teams, and that's emerging as, I think it's really becoming kind of, I was talking about the siloed capabilities and things that happen in SharePoint. I think Teams is really emerging as the platform of choice to bring everyone together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just really real quick, when I look at this, I think of chemistry, and I always hated chemistry, but it makes me nervous. But
sorry about that.
No, but it really highlights, and it kind of, not from a complexity of what Microsoft is doing and what's providing to the users and the business out there, but it really puts it in perspective that there's so much out there, right? So it emphasizes what we're talking about, that you need to be aware of what's available to you, how you're aligning it to your organization, and how you're going to execute it. So to back to your point, Mike, on the teams, it very much is an emergent kind of applications, and it's really taking off. We use it internally, we use it between our companies, and it's one of those applications. You go ahead and take to the next line. It's one of those applications that essentially is become the new SharePoint, right? From it was about 10 years ago, where there's a
Right.
lot of great, it's a central communication where it brings all your employees together, right? And allows you to communicate, collaborate, create different sections to start working on projects, integrate your applications, whether it's Flow, whether it's Power Apps, or even, Planner or any project components to it. So it's really your window into everything that you do within your organization. So it's a very powerful tool where Microsoft has made a lot of investment, but it goes back to what we're saying is it's not just turning it on, here you go, and then make it available to your users, but it's turning it on, understanding how we're going to use it, how to streamline those processes, and how to make sure that our users are adopting it and making sure that your return on investment is there. Because if you just turn it on, don't have governance, don't have any guidance or training, people are not going to use it. They're going to get frustrated, and they're going to go back to writing everything in paper or emails or whatever. So, so
Yeah.
it's the cool thing about what Microsoft is doing. It makes it so easy to enable so much, but at the same time, you need to make sure you box it as much as you can, not to suffocate your innovation, but make sure that it's a good parameters around it to be successful.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love what you said about the window to everything you're working on. We find that more and more people are wanting to, maybe in the project space, they want to take a project online. They want to be able to have a team space that is for the broader collaboration, and all kinds of different ways to do that. But like you said, it's really important, and this kind of goes back to that governance component to make sure that you do it in the right way, that you're going to build it in a way that it's useful and purposeful for each of those constituents that are going to go out and do it, and it's not the Wild West. I mean, you mentioned SharePoint. I remember 10 years ago, some clients would, we walk into and they'd say, we've got 5,000 SharePoint sites, and we don't know what any of them do, and the people who built them have changed jobs and all this other stuff. So while Teams is a great opportunity, like you said, if you don't have the right kind of structure around building it and the right kind of programs in place for adoption and sustainment, then you might get yourself into some trouble.
Yeah, we'll talk about adoption here in the next few slides, but yeah, that is key to success on your digital transformation, making sure that you're not only looking at training and support for your user, but adoption and change management is the terminology that needs to make sure that you guys understand, right? As part of your digital transformation. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is my slide as well. So as it relates to continuous, it's not just about the applications. The one thing that Microsoft continues to improve for us is the way our data is integrated, right? So the foundation of the digital transformation projects or direction you're trying to go is all about the data and the content being flowing through your organization. And how do you go about doing that? There's a lot of common data services. There are several data connectors that allow to not only pull data from an internal environment, but also pull data from other external applications. Right now, there are about 20 to 30 apps and data connectors, and they continue to grow and they continue to build those to allow, again, the window to make it easier for your users, your employees, to navigate and streamline your business processes at the end of the day. So.
Right, that makes perfect sense.
And since everything, as I said, one more click, Mike. As it relates to the data, data and content is critical. But at the same time, we have made it so easy now for folks to access information. So what's critical now is the security and compliance. We talked about governance. We talked about training and adoption, and as well as all the different tools available. But to the core and making sure for any successful digital transformation is making sure we incorporate the security and compliance. And we have three options at the bottom that we're kind of recommending as you guys are looking into digital transformation, which is the protection from threats. The threats can be as easy as an email that comes in as an attachment or as a link, or sometimes they're getting very crafty with some of these. Sometimes I get emails that look like Microsoft directly, and you click it, and there goes to, you're asking to authenticate yourself, and they grab your information. So how do we capture those things? How are you, as part of the digital transformation, how are you making sure that you're addressing any of those emails that are coming in? The other one is the data leaks or protection from data leaks. Is how are you making sure that the data that is being stored in your organization, like potentially credit cards or for your customers or social securities from some of your employees, how is that being protected? How are you making sure that only certain groups have access to that and not being enabled and open for anybody to access that information and take it for ransom and you potentially lose your business if you're in that, in the commercial world, or there's laws against it. You could potentially go to jail for some of those weird situations. And the third thing is control data access. Because as we secure the data, is making sure that we have the right controls in place so that folks don't access any of the information that they're not supposed to be. So emphasizing the security and compliance is a very important piece, because it will keep the organization safe. It will keep it in compliant with a lot of the regulations. It'll keep everybody happy and everybody
Right.
at potentially. So.
And by making sure you have these pieces in place, again, then management and your security officers, everyone can feel comfortable with building these digital transformation capabilities that are, provide all this additional value.
Absolutely.
With that, I'm going to launch the next poll, and it's a pretty simple poll. So it's really just asking, what areas of an organization really can benefit from digital transformation? Is it really the customer saving apps? Is it really IT, or is it every department and every person? So again, maybe a little bit of a trick question, but I just wanted to throw that out there to see. A lot of times when you hear digital transformation, people at first and foremost think about it as being more of an IT kind of thing, right, Gino? They think about doing the migration, getting to the cloud, those kind of things, right?
Right. It's not just one. Yeah, it's go ahead.
But it's really everything, I think.
Right.
And then,
I think well, the votes are coming in.
Yeah, I think we pretty much got it. So far, 100% of the votes coming in there. But the customer-facing apps, that's a big piece of it as well. And a lot of our customers are building more digital, the transformational types of apps to be closer to their customers and their customers' customers. So it's a great opportunity. These kind of opportunities come along every, maybe once or twice a generation, where things can really be improved holistically. And I think the infrastructure and the platforms are there for it now, if we can follow these pieces. So looks like everybody has voted for every department. So we're going to close that poll. And now we're going to move forward with a quick demo. So I mentioned before, that we were going to talk a little bit about the first part of our three-step was awareness, and really the first step of the first step was really getting people aligned from getting ideas of what business drivers and what are the things that we need to go after. And I said we would demo an application that's actually purposely built to do this. So Edison 365 Ideas is that application, and I'll demo it here in a second for you guys. So it's really built to align the ideas to strategy, so that you can say, what kind of challenges do we have as a business or as an organization? And it could be anything, right? It can be, we need to decrease costs, we need to increase employee satisfaction, increase customer satisfaction, we have a compliance thing we need to deal with. How do you empower your employees, and by further extension, your business partners, and even greater areas of society? We've seen open innovation platforms, or platforms like Edison use for things like engaging university systems and things like that. And how is that going to be able to bring the best possible solutions and best possible ideas back in? And then, of course, how do you objectively evaluate them? If you're talking about organizations, we've seen Edison deployed in organizations with 7, 10, 15,000 people. You can't have an email system or an idea box that objectively evaluates the thousands or tens of thousands of ideas that you have coming in. So how do you do this objectively, and then do something meaningful with it? And we won't get into the downstream piece of this, but really, if you think about any kind of initiative that people work on from a work or project management, they usually start with some form of idea, right? So it's going to be something that somebody says, hey, this is something we could go do, and it'll accomplish X, Y, or Z for us. So with that, I'm going to jump over to Edison Ideas, and I'm going to show, I guess you see the screen there, right, Gino? You see the Edison screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So just going to do a real quick, this is just a 4 or 5 minute demo, and again, we're happy to go into more detail, but what Edison Ideas is set up to do is give you a very quick visualization of like all of the challenges that are out there and all of the ideas submitted. So you see some quick stats right here. So we have 23 challenges that have been submitted by challenge owners. So somebody may have said we need to increase employee satisfaction or employee retention or customer satisfaction. Then there's a bunch of ideas that have been submitted against the different challenges. They're in different states, they're under review, and 6 of them have been successful. And what successful means is they've been awarded to move to the next phase. And the next phase could be go actually work this and do it if management's decided it's a good idea and they're going to fund it, or it could be it needs further review and it's got to go through like a business case review and you've got to actually put some return on investment or other types of metrics against it. But in this case, you've gone through the whole process, the whole board. So I'll kind of show that here in a minute. So down here you see in very nice card format, you see the challenges organized. One of the things that's really nice about this product is it's all modular design. So if you were to have this, I'm obviously doing this on my PC screen right now, but if it were on my phone, these would just flip in the card design and you would just scroll upwards. It would be 1 card per screen. So it automatically adjusts to any browser on any phone or any kind of device. So you can pretty much take it anywhere, do it anyway. So if I were to dive into a challenge here, I can look at it and it'll render here in a second. You see this challenge is how do we help us become a great place to work? And so you have all kinds of detail that people, Ruwan is the person who put this challenge out. How do we, what is it we want to accomplish? What does it look like to be a great workplace? And there's all kinds of things you can do. There's history around it. There's different things you can do with it. One of the things that I really find interesting is this concept of an ideas board. So when I click on this, for those that are familiar with like a work board or a Kanban type of thing, you can see that it's been, there's multiple ideas that have been submitted against this challenge, and they're in different states, and you can actually take and move them by dragging and dropping them, like I just did right there. I moved one from new idea into the next state, and it takes a second, so I'm just gonna click on OK, and now it's been escalated to the next stage there. Now all of these stages that you see are all completely configurable in the admin section. Of course, I won't go through that right now. I won't bore anybody with configuration, but you can make them whatever you want. So going back to home, you've got these different challenges down at the bottom. You now have the ideas, and again, there's different ways to scale, view them and look at them, and they're all by views, by ratings. One of the things you can see here in the ideas is there's kind of some gamification type of thing where you can just click on it and get a quick idea rating, and so anyone in the organization or that's viewing it can just click on it and rate it. You can go into the idea itself and look at it and see some more detail around where it's at. You can combine ideas, you can review them. One of the things that's really cool is you can go and do things like triage the idea. And so what this allows you to do as the owner of the challenge and the ideas associated with it is to go in and look at how these ideas have been rated against whatever type of business driver you want. And again, these are all fully customizable, and so we built this with just kind of standard things like risk, cost reduction, competitive advantage, increased revenue. It could be anything. It could be compliance or anything else. I think you can define 7 drivers across here, and you can see several of these have been awarded. There's awarded, there's draft, there's under review. So the interesting thing here is you can actually change things like I, as the challenge owner, can go and say, all right, I put in here this this idea, and it's kind of scoring out here, but you know what? I think that the cost reduction is actually a little lower than that. So you see it actually highlights it graphically and lets you know it changes it here. If I say the risk is a little higher, notice this is 6 here, and I go actually click it up and say, no, it's more like 70. Notice that the score actually dropped. That's because you can define these things as positively or conversely identified to the scoring. So risk, the higher the risk, the lower the score. So you notice when I run this risk up, it actually lowers the score. So that's a little bit about how you can do the triage. And again, if you have thousands of ideas, it makes a lot of sense to use a tool like this. The reports, there's one report out of the box. The thing that's really cool is you can use Power BI. All of these tools, all the Edison tools, and starting with Ideas and the others that they have, are all built on the 365 platform, and all can use the Power BI platform to visualize them. So here's an out-of-the-box report that comes with it from Power BI. This just gives you kind of a heat map of your ideas by different classification and things like that. There's also I don't have it loaded, but there's also a funnel one, so you could see maybe you had 500 ideas and it got down to those 6 that were awarded or whatever. So it's a really neat way to kind of just be able to quickly you put out challenges, ideas against them, rate them, and be able to take them all the way through the life cycle.
And if I could add something there, Mike, I mean, this is a very powerful tool as you start looking into, again, this we're talking about digital transformation. As you start looking at your organization, right? Again, it goes back to it's not just about the technology and or the processes, but it's also about the people and understanding your culture, meaning what are your folks thinking about the new technology? What are your folks thinking about how the apps could potentially integrate, or even ideas on the governance or policies that you have in place? It really start making you from the ground up, start thinking about how can you be successful in your digital transformation at the end of the day. And grabbing and capturing all this will not only help you and align you very well to have a successful implementation and rollout, as well as adoption, and fully get your return on investment at the end of the day. So this is a phenomenal tool, and highlights a lot of areas that can be leveraged to the success of a digital transformation.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Gino. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a nice segue into the next piece here. So we've talked about the 3 areas that we're going to go into detail on. The awareness was the first one, so that kind of did that. Alignment is actually next. So as you said, what are the things that you might be able to do? So you gather these ideas, and then during that ideation phase, and then sometimes into, depending on how your process is set up, into the business case phase, you say, well, what is realistic here, right? So this is a great idea, but what's it going to cost? What's the technology? What are the perspectives you need to do it? Maybe it's something that, using a low-code, no-code solution, an individual in a department could, to have maybe their own little personal hackathon, or get a couple people together and create some little prototype. But maybe it's something that's a little bigger and a little requires a lot more investigation, because there's more people involved and more process and everything else. So how do you make sure you understand what's affordable and doable? There's always resources, whether it's people or money, time. Those are always constraints in getting anything done. So you got to understand what's realistic. The next piece there is really the adoption and change management. I know you have a lot of experience in that, Gino, as well.
Yeah, we actually currently just got with the federal government supporting a government entity for the next 2 years, because they've invested a lot of millions of dollars with Office 365, and they realized that it's not just about turning it on, but it's about turning it on and getting the return on investment by implementing an adoption and change management plan associated to, because your users need to understand what's available to them, and not just going to training, right? It's not just Office 365 or Planner 101. It's truly about, what is my business case? What is my day-to-day, and how this technology is impacting my day-to-day? Is it helping me? Is it providing more opportunities to learn other areas so I can be successful to the mission? So there's so many different ways that you can look at it, and it's very important to making sure that your strategy is aligned and includes an adoption and change management component to it. Because it's definitely, I don't want to say it's going to make or break, but it's really going to help you be more successful and get better return on your investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was key to that is the fact that when you build these solutions, even if they're small solutions that are going to be used, they kind of take on a life of their own, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think that goes to that last point there in determining a path forward. So is it something that you need to have a formal change management plan or adoption plan, maybe even have a smaller scale one if it's a smaller solution, but you need to have a path forward. It can't just be, we're just going to go build this thing and hope for the best. And then you got to gain consensus on that plan. And this is important to do in the alignment phase before you get to the action phase, because the last place you want to actually try to gain consensus is when it's time to go build the thing, right? So that's right. That takes us to the next thing, action. So execute. And the first piece there, and this learning goes, I know, Gino, you guys have had the same learning. I've talked to a lot of people my partners and technology providers and solutions companies, as well as customers. And this first piece around how you execute is really almost universally the best approach. And not always, but almost universally, we find that building iterative solutions based on MVP, what is the minimal viable product mentality. So it's really almost kind of taken the Silicon Valley approach of build a product, get it out there, even if it's a product that's internally, even if it's a low-code solution, and get it out there and with its minimal viable capabilities. We've talked a lot about the things you need to do to make it successful long-term, but getting something out there and getting all the ideas that you have before you actually build something are all great, but the reality can change once something's out there and people have to use it. So build it, get it out there, and then I think that's when you start to get some of your best feedback, right, Gino?
Absolutely. So it's almost like, the saying, right, is fail fast to find out how quickly you can kind of regain from that, learn from that, and start implementing the next sprint and building a better solution or a solution that will allow you to help other areas. So, but at the same time, fail fast is very, very interesting philosophy and having that MVP mentality, but it's critical, again, tying to it, protecting it. It's very important, right? Now that everything is going to the cloud and it is accessible, easy for to access it easier. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say here, if I can spit it out, is to make sure that we're looking into how we're protecting that data, how we're automating that, how are we monitoring once everything's in place. Are we getting the right reports? Are we getting the right kind of flags to identify and continue to improve and continue to get better as we go through that. To the process. Essentially, is one of the examples I want to use is get a better lock for your house, right? So you're building a house, you start with just the regular keys. Now we got something more and more, now a security system around where you got the windows, doors, the garage, and everything now incorporated. Now you got maybe a biometrics thumbprint where you can, or that you can open the door now that way. As we continue to enhance and get better, that's something that definitely need to keep in mind as we start executing.
And you got a nice security system. I just have a ring on my house.
All right.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you're absolutely right on. And then that goes into the last point, which is to sustain the solution. And we've talked a little bit about that. That's ensuring you've got the proper support and maintenance mechanisms in place. If it's a small solution, you still need to think about who's responsible for the solution, who's going to maintain it. We've seen these kind of solutions. Harken back to like the SharePoint days when people would build solutions, then they would change jobs or something, and then people would go, who owns this app? And the same, and proliferation of apps, as Gino was saying, is going to get to be more and more. So even whether it's a small solution or a bigger solution, you still need to make sure you've got some checkboxes in place, and that you understand how it's going to be supported and maintained over time. So that you do get that kind of adoption, because you can have something that's wildly successful out of the gate, and then down the road things start to not go so well, and there's no one that's responsible for it, no chokeable neck, and then they don't know. The users start to fall off, and next thing you know, you got a solution that's not so well adopted, or maybe even goes away.
Right.
No matter how much value it added right up front. So
exactly.
I think with that, we're almost right on time. I think we were shooting for 45 minutes. We're 1 minute over. We wanted to get into a Q&A period. So we're, as it says there, we'll schedule appointments with Gino or I or any of our experts. We both have some really smart folks on our team. But I know smarter than me, Gino, that can know how to actually build these things and manage them, that can really help out if you guys are interested in a one-on-one conversation in any of the areas, or just want to explore the technologies, or any of the want more detailed demos. We also have go ahead, Gino.
I was going to add, this relates to, and I forgot to include it in there. If you already happen to be in a cloud environment, Office 365, one of the things that we're trying to do is looking at a cybersecurity assessment, right? So that might be interesting to help you at least identify how to keep those doors locked, or kind of keep your house better secure.
Right. Yeah, and we do similar things. We do assessments on work management, and and if you're thinking about moving to the cloud in any of your work management, whether it's Project Online, if you've got Planner, whatever you're trying to do, or even go with low-code, no-code solutions for business automation using Flow or anything like that, we can sit down with you and decide, here's it, learn a little bit more, and seeing if there's things that we could help you talk about. One of the things I wanted to should ask this before, are there any questions while we're Gino and I are going on and on? If there's any questions, feel free to put them in the box right now, and we'll be happy to address those before we wrap up here. But as I said, we have the free Harvard Business Review book, and Pamela will be sending out details on that as well, and how you can obtain that, as well as the all the information around what we covered today. You'll get the deck, you'll get the recording link, all that kind of good stuff. So, are there any questions? I don't see any posted to the poll yet.
I don't see any questions. I guess we answered everything.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
I'll give everybody just another minute. Did you have anything else, Gino, while we're waiting here? Would you like that?
No, really, it's like emphasizing one of the things, highlighting our partnership, maybe closing out. We've been partners for a little more than 10 years now, and doing, like you said, our services overlap and complement each other, and look at it from a different angle. Ours more from a federal side and state and local, and I believe yours from a commercial, healthcare, those different markets out there. And it works great because we help each other, and we learn from some of the things that we're doing in the federal, and we learn from you guys some of the things that you guys are doing in the commercial, and it just creates this very strong collaborative and partnership that allows us to provide better solutions to our customers.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's been great, and it's exciting times looking forward to.
Yeah.
So Gino, with that, I don't see any other questions. If anyone has any questions past this, feel free to reach out. You've got all the contact information there, and like to say thanks again, Gino, for helping with this and putting it together and co-presenting. Great content, great stuff.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks everybody. Have a great day. Take care.